Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here and thanks for checking out my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell for new episodes. You can also find Shine Without Shame on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
I've been in those situations before, and I've actually seen it in a couple clients where, right, knowing is potentially going to be scary, or getting this test for, whatever, HPV, let's say, like it's scary to potentially find out these results. And that is so valid, because I think we've all been there at one point. I also feel that at the end of the day, knowledge is power. And I think, again, at the end of the day, we have to sit with ourselves. We have to be with ourselves. We are in these physical bodies for the rest of our time here. And, trying to shift that story of like a fear-based, I don't want to know, maybe just push it out. Like, I don't know if I want to deal with that, to acquiring tools or support or books, or a session with an herbalist or an acupuncturist, where we can find out this information, we can hold the space, and we can like offer support in like steps. Because sometimes like the future is scary. It's like, okay, well, what if I have this diagnosis, and then what do I do? And so being able to educate ourselves, or how, go to someone that is educated in the field, I believe can really bring power. And again, this isn't going to be like a perfect path, right? There are going to be some days where we're just like, what, I can't deal with this today. It's overwhelming. I have too much on my plate. I don't want to think about it today. And that's going to happen. And again, that's neither like a good thing or a bad thing. It just is. And it's just where someone's at. And then you can go into the next day and see if anything has shifted, or if if someone can approach the next day in a different way, or the same day, or the same way as the day previously. And I think, having a support system is really key, and not all of us have that privilege, unfortunately. And that is, unfortunate to say, and disappointing, because I think we would all love to see everyone feel supported in their health journeys. And I think sometimes that's a little harder to obtain for some people. And I think, I would hope, I think being in the herbal world, we all have to survive. And also, like, I do feel this calling to just help. If someone is asking for help and really needs help, like, okay, let's find a way that we can support each other, and like, making sure that like you feel supported as a client. And I think being fluid, like, at least for me, being fluid in that way has been helpful, because it's not so rigid, because like people aren't rigid, and like people things happen. And trying to be as fluid as possible to try and offer support when asked or needed.
It's more important than I think sometimes we all recognize. And support can be so, it can be so many things, so many different things, just knowing that maybe you've got someone you can call on to help you in a certain kind of situation, or just having people who who check in on you, and, or, ask, like, are you okay? Do you need anything? It's, and so many other kinds of ways of supporting, but it's absolutely essential. And I think in general in life, to have a support system for all aspects of life. But when it comes to health, I mean, health is such a personal thing, but it doesn't mean that support, it doesn't mean that you have to get really nosy in someone's business if that's not
Right.
Appropriate. Or maybe you are nosy because there's that, intimacy and trust. But either way, it makes it feel like there is the light at the end of the tunnel. We're like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this. And I can speak to our recent camping trip. Just, I had every kinds of physical challenge that I probably have ever had in 3 days. And you were there, and our other fellow herbalists were there, and students. And I was so appreciative of the support, that I received, people who didn't know me even, even just saying, hey, just hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. And it was a real struggle. I'll tell you, I'm still recovering from that trip last week, but there was a lot of generosity and care and concern, and it seemed to come so easily for people. And it makes sense that group, it would come easily to those peeps. But also it made me realize, offering support doesn't mean that you have to, it has to become a burden to you as the person who's supporting. It can be just a simple question, or just just touching base with somebody. And it was really kind to know that I had what I needed. Even if I was really struggling to kind of make it through the day, like, I knew that I had what I needed. Also, it helped. Yes, I was around people who also know the body and know health, and could give advice. But it can look so many different ways. But you're right. It ideally just should be a part of everyone's life. And it's true, not everybody has that. And I'm just thinking about people who are, people who are wanting to take steps to address some sort of issue, address some sort of health concern, mind, body, even spirit, whatever it may be, whatever level. But are there any, you've already given so many words of, encouragement and so many words of wisdom, but are there any things that you think people should, just keep in mind for their journey, for the times that are, that are scary, or for the times that things are just not clear? I don't know, any principles, any advice that you think would be useful for people to keep in mind on their health journeys as, they're moving along?
Yeah, I find that because we're so dynamic as people, and I think a lot of us have this narrative that, like, oh my gosh, I'm going through this thing, like, will anyone understand? And I can say, as a practitioner, someone might come to me and I have never experienced that personally, and with that, I am confident to say that, like, there are so many, like, there is a person that's struggling with something, let's say health condition wise, there will be one person, and probably many more than that, that are having similar experiences. And so I find that trying to find those groups of people, whether that's online, whether that's through an online workshop, whether that's through your local herb store, maybe that is just a support group. We have things like, kind of in the addiction world, like NA and AA, and there's even a support for children who have had parents that have, have been with addiction or addictive patterning, where it's like there is access. And because we live in a day of age of, like, technology and being able to do Zoom stuff, like, there is probably more access than we've ever had. So even if you live in an area that is maybe more rural, or again, doesn't have access to an herb shop, or don't have maybe as many herbalists in an area than, a big city would, trying to find people that are experiencing similar things, whether that's health related or not, I think kind of also, speaks to the point of support and making it less taboo, and making it feel like we are only experiencing this thing personally. And I find that being able to find these groups of people that share similar experiences can be also less fear-based and also create more confidence around, said ailment or experience. So I do find that is really common. I mean, even like I had a client that was a new mother, right? And moved to a new area and is looking for support and, doesn't know anyone in this new area. And it's like, okay, well, how can we harness like finding, people with the same kids, in the same age group that can, that have probably similar experiences to you, raising a 2-year-old, uh, etc. So yeah, I would say there is support and just taking the step to try to find support or reach out to someone that maybe might have some of that networking already that can maybe try and link some things for you. Um, it's out there.
Yes, there is like you said, such a diversity of support and resources. And now that we've got this online world, oh, you can find it. I mean, use your judgment, use your best judgment and be wise, that you're connecting with people who are genuine. But oh yes. I mean, I remember a relative of mine
Mm-hmm.
was experiencing excruciating physical pain. Now, I knew they were experiencing physical pain and they would mention that, but I didn't know how bad it was until they ended up talking to a practitioner who was alternative and who was able to really delve
Mm-hmm.
into what was going on with them. And they said, you can find support groups for people who deal with pain. I'd never heard of that, like physical pain. I was like, oh, that makes sense because it's
Mm-hmm.
for some people it's so excruciating. You can't describe it to somebody who doesn't know, who hasn't been there. And I certainly hadn't. I mean, I've experienced
Yeah.
my fair share of pain, but not, I don't think at this level. And I thought, oh, wow, there really are so many kinds of support, areas of support. And it's true. Is if
Mm-hmm.
can at least, if you have internet access or somebody who does, you can get to where you
Mm-hmm.
need, and that is the beauty and
Yeah.
blessing, I think, of this era. And
Mm-hmm.
it helps. Yeah, sometimes I think that might be part of that is the healing process. Even just the finding the people
Mm-hmm.
can kind of
Mm-hmm.
be part of the relief. Maybe it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
take away, in the case of this relative, all their physical pain, but it
Mm-hmm.
might lighten the burden a little bit. Just know, because I know from the little experience I've had with physical pain, there was a very strong emotional component to it. Even the anticipation of the pain coming would cause anxiety for me. And
Right.
so yeah, I can imagine in that case, like, if I had somewhere to go to talk to people who are dealing with this, who understand it, it might allow
Mm.
me to find a little more space almost within myself to kind of
Mm.
grapple with that. Anyways, just as an example, I just thought,
Yeah.
but when I heard about that, oh, there are support groups for pain, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, but I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as a practitioner, like we are not going to have all the experiences that maybe a client has, and that is okay. We can't have every experience that every client that you're going to see is going to have. And so again, we can take our knowledge and try and support as best as we can, but I also feel like there's just gonna be people who understand more, and they are out there. Like for an example, if someone has a past with addiction, you know other people with addiction in their past will definitely understand more than someone who has never seen a drug, used a drug, had any family members or loved ones use substances. So yeah, I think yeah, just finding familiarity is healing in itself, and can help overcome the fear of like just feeling like we're the only ones that are experiencing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that feeling alone, that's such a pervasive part of, I think, this era. feeling alone, even with all
Mm-hmm.
the connections. And so I think making genuine
Mm-hmm.
connections, meaningful connections, even if it's online, there's no shame in that at all.
Yeah.
It's just, but finding where you feel like you belong, and that can
Mm-hmm.
take some time. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm speaking, big picture, but also, yes, I am thinking in the context of, support with life and health
Mm-hmm.
and um what we've been speaking about. But it's that feeling alone, or feeling like no one else understands this. No one else.
Mm-hmm.
It's only me. And that's sometimes where the shame can come. I know it's like, it's only me. I'm the only person who's dealt with
Mm-hmm.
this. This is awful. Like nobody else, like it's so bad. Like nobody else probably has ever dealt with this. And yeah, you do learn
Mm-hmm.
people. No, maybe it's, yeah, different factors leading up to different experiences, but people
Yeah.
people relate. I mean,
Yeah.
we we don't have that many differences among us. Yes, we all have our own histories and our own, genetics and our own
Yeah.
environments, but when you start to, I know in the work that I do as, as a coach and
Mm-hmm.
life coach, and I start to recognize it sort of boils down to a lot of the same challenges, not to diminish, someone's unique experience or their personal journey,
Right.
of course, because that is what's unique. No one can have the exact
Yeah.
same journey, but in terms of life experiences and struggles, a lot of that, there's so many similarities,
Yeah.
and I think having the spaces to talk about them, where you feel safe, where you feel like you can trust, that space, it just helps other people in hearing, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, they're dealing with that. Well, okay, maybe it's time for me to
Mm-hmm.
start to maybe deal with my challenge, or whatever the case may be. It just helps. We're
Mm-hmm.
so similar, right? I mean, I know science has
Yeah.
already done a lot of the work to say, like, it's like, I don't know, like a percentage, like that it makes us different, but like 90 some percent
Yeah.
of, we're just so genetically, and we're just so much the same.
Yeah.
So, and I think
Yeah.
also there's trends. I don't know if you've looked at, kind of, if you've ever noticed, or if you've ever kind of sat back and looked at, like, there are kind of trends of health challenges. I
Mm.
understand. I mean, I've spoken to people who work in, alternative health, and they start to see, oh, there's kind of like, there's phases or stages of like patterns, that I start to see the same kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
coming to me with clients,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, like that's
Yeah.
interesting in and of itself. Like we all are sort of in this together, this
Yeah.
this journey called life. And
Yeah.
so it makes sense that a lot of the same ailments are going to be affecting us, because the
Yeah.
world's challenges are, they are what they are, and you really
Yeah.
can't escape them for the most part. So I find that very fascinating. I'm very much I like big picture, and I like micro, and I like macro, and I like to connect the
Yeah.
dots, so
Yeah.
I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
Have you
They're
have you
intertwined.
noticed that the patterns that kind
Yes.
of come in waves?
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I have in so many different areas. You know, I don't want to list off some of them, but others of like, allergies and food intolerances and autoimmunity and birth stories and, different types of trauma actually manifesting in really similar ways in people. Um, And again, like because we as herbalists we're not board certified and we can't access testing and certain things that like an ND could, we have to really gather as much information as we can and try and find correlations between what this person is telling us, what does their pulse feel like, what does their face look like the color, the vibrancy, the light or the dark or the circles that, whatever the face is telling us, different diagnostics tools and strategies that we can look at. And again, it's and then maybe if someone has tests, like we're looking at again the whole picture of like all the information, not just, oh, you have knee pain and it's on a scale at 8, 8 pain, like here's something, we're really trying to find all the subtle nuances. And again, I would never think or even say to someone, "Oh, you've experienced this, therefore this is what's happening in your body." But we can also verbalize like, "Oh, I'm seeing this correlation." Again, like this doesn't mean that this is like, you know, one side of the spectrum or the other, but there could be correlation here. And I think that's helpful to kind of keep in mind because, yeah, there's a lot of common threads within our human existence. Of course, there's a lot of nuance because each person is different. And yeah, I think like the ego is also a really interesting thing that like humans have, right? The ego thinks, you know, we're each like so special and like so different and no one else could be experiencing the same thing that I'm experiencing. And ego is a really beautiful thing, but I think sometimes it can get in the way, kind of what we were just saying, right? Like there are so many other people that are probably experiencing similar, health experiences that you have, or pain, or grief, or the passing of a loved one. You're not the only one, and I think there's beauty in that, like finding that camaraderie wherever that is.
Yes. Okay, Dana. Well, are there any final words, encouragement, or words of wisdom or
Mm,
insight that you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
I guess well, not always, but I think like I always kind of ponder herbalism and like herbal healing and plants. And um, I think as herbalism rise and it kind of starts rising in trendiness, there are really awesome things that come from that. And also some not so great things that come from that. And I think sometimes I do see that herbalism is painted in this way that feels very out of reach for a lot of people, right? It's this um, very whitewashed, perfect, perfect shapes and beautiful colors and really pristine pictures and products. And yes, that is a thing, and that can be a world if you want to tap into that and be in that, that's great. And also herbalism is every culture has plant-based practices. It doesn't matter if you're connected to those or if those have been lost in translation. Um, every single culture on this planet, every single people on this planet have used plants. And so it doesn't have to be this trendy thing. It doesn't have to be this like expensive thing. Like we can all have relationships to plants. And that doesn't mean that you have to become a clinical herbalist. It doesn't mean you have to go teach at big symposiums. It doesn't mean that you have to own an herb shop. It can literally be like growing calendula in a pot, like in your window or on the stairs leading up to your house. And it could be as simple as making a tea every morning. Um, or yeah, just going into an herb shop and kind of just looking around. It can be so many different things. And I think I always want to empower people that it doesn't have to be this inaccessible thing or expensive thing. It's very rootsy in its core. It's very, it's in our ancestry, whatever that is, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA. Like we know plants. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of things that have happened that have severed those ties a lot of the times. And so I think it's just coming back to basics. And basics could literally mean going out and sitting next to a pine tree. It could mean, again, growing a tomato plant. It could be growing a calendula plant. It could be making some tea. And I think there are really beautiful lessons in that, and beautiful story in that, and beautiful remembrance in that. And it doesn't have to be this like snazzy, cool, hip thing.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Yes, that is such
Yeah.
a good reminder and a very helpful insight. And because it is easy to get caught up in the commercial side and feel that,
Mhm.
well, I got to do this if I want to keep up, or and it's such a nice reminder or acknowledgement that that doesn't have to be if you want that, great. If it doesn't have to
Hmm.
be the way you approach your health and
Right.
connecting to plants. So thank you for offering
Yeah.
that. And so I will ask you the question I ask every guest at the end. We're at the
Okay.
end. And that
Yes.
is, which television show, new or old, do you recommend and why? It doesn't have to be your favorite.
Yeah. I this question was a little funny because I'm not a big like at least as an adult, like not a big TV show person. Of course, I grew up watching cartoons and things like that, but I thought about it and I thought about a series. I think it's on Hulu. I think it's called Dope Sick. And it
Mm.
is a really powerful, like short series. It's scripted, but it's based on real events, and their information is actually very on point. Um, but it is about basically the opiate pandemic and how opiates started kind of circulating within our communities on the pharmaceutical kind of medical level, and how there was, big court cases of looking at these pharmaceutical industries and seeing the path that they have kind of created with the opiate use epidemic, and where yeah, just that kind of that story. I guess I don't want to give too much away, but I think that can be a really pivotal kind of show to watch for people that maybe don't understand the opiate epidemic, the overdose epidemic, just kind of the substance use epidemic that we're having. And I think it can give education of like real things that have happened since the 90s and how we have kind of gotten to this place that we have currently. And I also feel like it can maybe offer a little compassion for people that have found themselves in this world of opiate use, because it is a very real thing. And I think, a lot of us know someone personally or have experienced it personally or have had a loved one um, struggle with drug use. And I think it's just, yeah, it just is a very telling story of Purdue and Big Pharma and um, what has happened over the years to kind of get us to where we're at. Of course, that's not the only reason, drug addiction or substance use you know, is, but uh, it's a very like big factor in it.
That is a good recommendation. I have not finished watching it. I
Yeah.
started it and
Mm,
it wasn't that I was like, "Ooh, I can't watch this." It was just like I just ran out of time in my life to focus on a series at that time when I started it. So it's still on my list
yeah.
and I'm going to get back
Nice.
to it. And yes, I remember I recall you mentioning that maybe even in one of our classes recently. So it was a good reminder.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I want to get back to that. Thank you so much, Dana. This has been a wonderful
You're welcome.
conversation. And I hope that the audience has maybe
Mm,
received not just, just factual information about plants and medicine and healing, but just maybe broaden their minds about how to think about the journey of healing and health
mhm,
and resources and support and knowing that
mm.
it's there is hope. There can always be hope. I appreciate that message that you offer. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany, for having me. That was fun.